Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like Diamonds, back again. We're talking about redfish, not just one, not just two, not just three, but 30,000 redfish. Justin, what in the world is going on?
We got a whole bunch of fish, man. What are we gonna
Dude,
do?
I don't know. That's the big question. We want some feedback on this. We'll give you the little backstory. We have two stories colliding and converging together. Maybe Justin, while I'm talking, could think of a cool word that's kind of like collision. Justin's good about coming up with $5 words, but we've got two different stories that are colliding together. One is our insider club. That's something that Luke and I started kind of as a dream to help fishermen. It's the same things that we wish was around when we were struggling to go from freshwater bass anglers to this transition of trying to catch inshore fish, redfish, speckled trout, snook, flounder, etc. And so this club was born. I remember we celebrated 100 members. I remember we hit 1,000. I remember we hit 2,000. I remember where we were. It was near Fort DeSoto, and we just hit 2,000 members, and we're like, all right, we've got something here. And then 10,000 was a monumental, like not just a high five, but that was like a party. And then 20,000 members, that happened like really quick from 10 to 20. And then this 20 to 30 happened really quick as well. I feel like it just, obviously you have a lot of social proof, and anytime you have a club with 30,000 members, it's enabled us to do so many more things, like do the tackle discounts, and like have this new Smart Fishing Spots app, and like have the community, and now have fishing coaches like you. And I mean, the list goes on and on when you compare the value of today versus in the past. And so this club has exploded. And if you don't know where I'm going with this, we just hit 30,000 members here very recently, and massive, obviously, internal party for us. Just like that is so cool. It solidifies everything that we're doing. And what's really neat is almost all of the people from day one, like that first year when we had, just a few hundred insider members, they're still renewing. I mean, what now, 6 years later, which is really, really cool. And so we got 30,000 members. So just kind of keep that number in the back of your head. And we're like, hey, we got to do something big and bold. And, and also kind of on the conservation front, we wanted to tie that in. So flip back to, I don't know, a couple of years ago, Justin and myself and Luke, we went down to Mote, or I guess over to Mote near Sarasota. And Justin, talk about that experience of what we learned and what we kind of got to do that day.
So, before being with you guys, I knew a couple people at Mote, Dr. Ryan and Dr. Kevin Main's the director out there, and they have a really cool operation. There's Mote Aquarium that's out in Sarasota, and then there's the Mote Aquaculture Park. And the Aquaculture Park is basically a team of scientists that are working together in collaborative efforts for conservation initiatives, mangrove restoration, aquaponics, which is balancing fish and plants to grow to, give to market for harvest. And they also breed and raise juvenile snook in captivity to be able to put back out in the wild, and other game fish too. They do amberjack, they've done permit, they've done a lot of really cool projects. And we had the opportunity to go to Mote Aquaculture Park and work with a team of volunteers and the scientists to help tag and release tens of thousands of baby snook into the West Coast. It was really cool to see the whole operation, see like just all the people involved in the tagging and recording process, and transport and care of all the fish, and then finally get in my khakis and shoes and like get in like muddy water and release all these fish. It was a really cool experience. Something I've always wanted to do, but like to see the whole process from, pretty much from beginning to end, and what goes into this. It takes a long time to make it come to fruition. It takes a lot of hands to make it happen.
Yeah. We had like 30, 40 people there just making this happen, right? I mean, you're having to now transport all these thousands of snook into a really big truck. Think of it almost like a gas container truck. I mean, it's massive, full of water, obviously. And then you got to take it to the spot where you're dropping all these fish. And then you got to get them out. We had to get them out in coolers, like big old school igloo coolers and Yeti coolers. We're just taking them back and forth on a little ATV. I mean, it was just nuts, everything that happened there. And we're like, man, it would be so cool to do this again. And not that we don't love snook, but we really wanted to do something with redfish. And the main reason is, the Salt Strong Insider Club is not a Florida even though it's based in Florida, it's not a Florida club. It's really the whole country. Now we have members in every single state, but really from Texas to Virginia. I mean, that's like the main core group. And guess what fish is in all of those places? I mean, speckled trout and then the redfish. And I guess, flounder is as well. But those other two, meaning flounder and speckled trout, are a little bit tougher to recreate, at least, from what Mote has the capabilities. And we have a good relationship with them. Like, yeah, we could do redfish. And so I want to tell you some of the things we were thinking about on the conservation front. So we were also thinking about, hey, maybe we go plant some, seagrass, because we wanted to do maybe 30,000 seagrass buds or whatever. And the more we've had experts on there, I feel like that's not the right time. We need to fix the water issues first. And, our last guest, you were on there, Justin Savannah.
Yeah, we learned a ton, man. Like that podcast was really eye-opening. I mean, I've learned a lot. My background being in fisheries management, I learned kind of a good amount about seagrass, but that podcast was cool. So like, if you guys are watching this, go listen to that too. You learn a lot about seeing seagrass as it is, as opposed to how it just helps fisheries and, your natural, like the natural wildlife around. Seagrass is pretty incredible as like a living organism. So I love that podcast. It was a lot of fun.
It was. But the one thing I learned is it doesn't help to just go plant seagrass like that. That's not the solution. She's like, you could spend $500,000 on putting seagrass in an area where it's got bad water and it's just going to flat out die. None of it's going to survive. No matter how much you want it to, it will die unless you fix the water problems first. And so we're like, well, gosh, if we can't plant seagrass, what else could we do to make sure that our kids and our grandkids are going to have the same opportunities we are? And the good news is fish are resilient. I mean, there's still fish in areas, Mosquito Lagoon, that has lost a ton of grass. And we're like, man, what if we could find a way to put back a ton of fish? And we started a conversation with Mote, kind of told them what we were thinking. We mentioned the 30,000 number. And they're like, just so happens we could recreate 30,000 redfish. And I was like, So Justin and I got pretty excited. We had now quite a few calls with them, and it seems to be moving forward. So we got our 30,000 insider members, now more than 30,000, celebrating that. And we're going to do it with putting back 30,000 little baby redfish into some area undisclosed right now. And quite honestly, we don't know exactly for sure where it's going to be. And we want your feedback on that. So where do you think it should be? I will state right up front that we're not going to be able to just pick this spot because so-and-so said they need redfish. It will be based on areas they know for sure need more redfish, and also areas that they know they can track these redfish. That's a big thing, because you might have heard about other groups, let's just say, that have put redfish back in. And in fact, we even sponsored one here recently up closer, towards the panhandle, about 10,000 redfish being dumped by Duke Energy. And obviously great company, and Duke Energy and CCA work together. And so we were one of the big sponsors on that. And in that area, we'll have about 10,000 redfish coming here, I think towards the end of the year. The whole process obviously takes some time, but the one thing that I don't think any of these other groups are doing that we've seen so far, so correct me if I'm wrong, is actually tracking, like, with tags, right, to see exactly what happens with these fish. Do half of them make it? Do 90% of them make it? Do 10% of them make it? Like, what is the survival rate? Where are they going? Are they coming back, right? Because what they found with Snook, when you actually tag these things and they have this acoustic tagging, they're finding that the Snook are coming back to the areas that they were originally dumped. Not all of them, but a lot of them, just kind of like bass, where bass sometimes will get released and go right back to where, they were caught, and kind of call that home, if you will. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. So Justin, you talk a little bit about that, about what is Mote doing. We'll obviously have Mote on here to talk about all this when it's more finalized, but talk about some things that they do, and really the reason we teamed up with them on this science-based approach.
So there's two different types of tags that we're going to look into doing. All out of all these 30,000, these are going to be released in batches, and they're kind of going to be, so that we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak. We're going to be releasing different batches of redfish at a lot of different areas, based on these transponders that need to be available so that they can ping and pick up on these fish when they swim by. But you've got coded wire tags, not coated, but coded with a D. They're really, really tiny. They look like a really small piece of lead, but that metallic will pick up on a transponder the same way a pit tag will, which is a passive integrated transponder. And these acoustic kind of units, as these fish pass by, these pit tags will ping these units, and a percentage of the batch will be recorded so that we can kind of see the survivability at all these different areas that these fish will be released at. And like you said, it's cool because it hasn't really been done before. Snook have that tendency to come back, and they're rather homebodies. They're very structure oriented. They tend to hang out within localized areas, and they can move, but they don't move nearly as far as a redfish could. I mean, guys, if you've probably heard of like redfish making their way all the way up to New York and New Jersey on the East Coast. Like, those fish move around. So who's to say that redfish couldn't pick up and move, a couple 100 miles, and then at some point in time return back to that general area that they were released? I mean, this is uncharted, but the steps that Mote is taking is to help ensure or gather the data necessary to know how we can be better and better each time we continue with this type of project. Because I mean, this is a huge hit, and we're anticipating this being really big. The survivability of redfish is inherently very high, but the data to prove it long term helps us be better in the future. So I think that's really cool. That's one of their missions, is to look at the sustainability aspect of this type of project of stock enhancement and letting fish go out into the wild. Is how viable is it long term? Are we releasing fish and hoping for the best, or can we actually track our success rate of how many we can acknowledge coming back into these these transponders?
Yeah, I'm really pumped for that, because what you said is, that's the downside of just throwing a bunch of redfish in a body of water. It's a hope and pray. It's like, hey, we hope you make it. We'll be praying for you. Versus,
realistically, like a good chunk of them are likely going to make it. I mean, if you understand, their redfish are very hardy,
yeah.
but like you're going to say, the point is, how do you prove it? How do you track it? And that's what's being done.
Yeah. And we'll also be able to find out which types of areas are the best, right? Some might surprise you. And until you use science to prove this with these acoustic tags, you honestly won't really know. And it could be that, hey, we thought this site was going to be great, this little estuary, and it's horrible for whatever reason. Maybe there's just too many birds and they're all just eating these, because these are small little redfish, right? I mean, we're talking a few,
couple
4 or
inches.
5 inches.
Yeah.
5 inches max. I mean, it's a ton. And so man, it's gonna be so interesting to see this. And I love the fact that Mote gets so pumped. I mean, they flat out said when we first contacted them, like, if you guys are thinking about just dumping some in a random area, we're not your partner. We're like, we want to do this. And like you said, uncharted territory. We want to be able to track what's happening. We want everyone to benefit from this, right? If there's a group in Texas who wants to do the same thing, that they can use our data to make this better for everyone. And who's to say we might not do one in Texas next? This first one, I will say, it will be in Florida, just based on Mote and where they are. There are other opportunities to do some in Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, and then in Texas as well, and even up the Carolinas and Georgia. There are different hatcheries in different states, but this one with Mote will be in the state of Florida somewhere. So we do want to hear your feedback. Once again, leave a comment down below, no matter where you are, ideally in the blog post at saltshore.com, and put a comment down below where you think we should drop these 30,000 redfish and why. We'd love to hear your feedback on that, because that's how we all get better. And we will be looking at your answers and sharing that with Mote as well. Because they want to hear from anglers to say, right, man, these anglers are really struggling here in wherever, Port Charlotte or wherever the area is, that you think there needs to be a whole lot more redfish. What do you think, Justin?
I was thinking of the $5 word.
Still thinking
amalgamation.
Amalgamation.
I feel like that's one in the back of my mind. If I've not used that correctly, please somebody correct me, but I'm pretty sure that's a combined effort of a lot of little things, kind of like a smorgasbord, but I feel like,
yeah, culmination. What movie was that from?
Oh man, I don't know.
It
I don't
was
know.
Stifler was a lacrosse player. And
Oh,
you remember the coach, it was the assistant coach, and he would just repeat everything the coach said.
American Pie.
I think it was American Pie. Culmination.
Oh man, that's digging back up. That's 15, 20 years ago. Oh my gosh. But yeah, what you're saying is this may be, if this is a huge success and the data that we collect from this will help other organizations, because I mean there are other efforts where people release redfish in other states, like you're mentioning. It will help everybody be better
Yeah.
and that much more successful at making sure that the fish we're releasing have a better chance of survival and a chance for you and your family and future generations to enjoy catching them someday. So this is really cool. It's taken this to the next level.
Yeah. And this is not cheap. As you can probably imagine, I mean, just to be able to raise that many redfish, I mean, you can only imagine the facility it takes and the tanks and the food that goes into that. I mean,
Wow.
this is like a 10-month process of, obviously you're having to breed big breeder reds first and get all the eggs. And and we're going to document this entire process. I think it's going to be really fascinating for everyone to learn how they actually do it, but all the food that goes into that, and then all of the people, and of course, volunteers that need to help tagging and all that. And we get to be a part of that. And the whole, I mean, it takes forever just to make that part of it happen. The great news, the part I'm really excited about, it ties in our mission about uniting friends and family through fishing, is we're going to bring a lot of you, assuming you're an insider member. It's going to be for some insider members only. I don't know how we're going to pick and choose, and we'll find out kind of how many people we can bring along on this trip, or might even be multiple trips, as Justin kind of alluded to, but to join us and watch this whole process and to be a volunteer. And I mean, we had the coolest time ever. I've heard about it. I've seen videos. I've seen clips of all these fish being released before. But until you're there and get to feel and touch it, it was like, whoa! I can't believe all this went into it. And it was so cool and so rewarding. I remember going back in the back of that pickup truck on the way back, and we're just like, man, that was really flipping awesome. I mean, what a cool experience. And I got to bring my daughter along, who just loves nature. And it was just, man, what a day. So I'm really excited to be able to do that again with a lot of you insider members. And once again, we will let you know well in advance when we have an actual city and spot lined up. And of course, you'll have to sign an NDA that you'll never share the exact spot, because it will be loaded with redfish. No, I'm just kidding. We'll let all of our insiders know where it is. But I'm super, super pumped about that, because that's fun for us to be able to meet a lot of our members and to meet you while we're doing something that cool. It's going to be an absolute blast.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time, man.
I know also Mote loves having people there. They don't like when people just show up randomly. But they do love giving tours of that aquaculture center. What city is it in?
It's outside. I mean, Fruitville Road. I don't know if Fruitville is actually a
I
town, but
think it
it's outside of
is.
Sarasota by 30 to 45 minutes or so.
Yeah,
It's mainland.
it was real close to Winter Haven. I mean, compared to like driving all the way to Sarasota,
Yeah, pretty
hour
close to the interstate. Yeah.
hour and a half. But anyhow, what we can probably do, if you guys are interested, is a couple field trips with us to go, because we're going to be going there quite a bit to document this whole process once they start the breeding, which will be happening sooner than later. I believe fall is their ideal time when they want to do that. So that will be happening here. I mean, it's basically as soon as Labor Day happens, we'll be heading over there quite a bit. And if you'd like to join us on some of those field trips to learn a little bit more and just to see all this behind the scenes, like Justin said, I mean, they had big, massive tanks of redfish and permit. What else? They had
Man,
black
they
drum,
did amberjack for a while.
amberjack, tons of
They've tried
snook.
trout. They've tried all kinds of inshore game fish. Pompano has been profitable in the past. Because that's a great commercial fish to raise, but the sky's the limit. I mean, there's talks about potentially cobia. There's talks about, I think, snapper. I mean, there's so many projects that are in the wings that can come to fruition.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So we'll definitely let you know on that. And the last thing to do is just comment down below where you think we should drop 30,000 redfish. So pumped about this. It is going to be such a blast. And I'm guessing it's going to be the first part of 2023 on the actual drop date. That's kind of what it looks like. If it starts in fall, you got all that time to raise these little hatchlings, these little small reds, up to the size that, 3 to 5, maybe even 6 inches, depending on what day we do this. But man, there's going to be a ton of redfish. Holy smokes!
Yeah, we're gonna need a lot of hands, man. I mean,
because we did what, 7,000? I want to say maybe 10.
I think it was closer to 10. Yeah. And I mean, that was like multiple trips back and forth on 2 different vehicles to shuttle all these fish out in different spots. It's a whole day endeavor. And that's just one batch. Like, they still had other juvenile snook that they're going to release at another location in a week or two. So that was, it's not going to be all done in one day. There's going to be many, many trips within the, through spring of 2023 to get all of them out there for everybody to enjoy.
Yeah. And we did drop those, let's just say 10,000 snook in Port Charlotte and the Mayaca River. I can't give you the actual GPS spots on that unless you're an insider, but we know where they are. And I would definitely, if you can get up there in a smaller boat or the mouth of it, it is loaded with snook, as you can possibly imagine. Yeah, tons and tons and tons. So that was such a blast. But yeah, just wanted to share that with you guys on what we be doing and what we're cooking behind the scenes. 30,000 members, 30,000 redfish going back into our waters, which benefits everyone. Even if this drop spot is not anywhere close to where you live, as Justin said, this data alone is going to be hugely beneficial, because no one's done this before that we know of, that even Mote knows of, that has actually tracked all of these things and really gotten fine details, like science-based details on what's happening with these redfish. Are they coming back? Are they staying? Are they living? Are they dying? So we'll have a whole lot of data that we'll be able to share with all of you, and with other hatcheries and other places that are trying to do the same thing, to make sure that, once again, that our kids and grandkids and great grandkids have the same opportunities we do to catch a bunch of fish, and not just go out there hoping and praying one comes along. We want it to be where there's redfish all over the place. So, Justin, anything else? Any other big words?
No big words, but that's been a dream of mine, man. Is like, I've caught monster redfish and snook in my life, and shortly after those moments of catching those fish, I've told myself I want to know that my kids and my other friends and family members can enjoy this in their lifetime, and that can happen if we take action to do stuff like this. So it's really humbling to be a part of this project. It's very cool.
Absolutely. And hopefully you guys will be as well. So leave a comment down below what area, what city you think we should drop all of these redfish. Otherwise, we will talk to you guys in the next episode. Peace. We out.